The wind howled through the city like a warning that winter had fully taken over. Snowflakes clung to streetlights, turning the roads into rivers of white and silver. Somewhere in that swirling storm, a woman in a dark red coat stood outside a tall glass building, her breath coming out in soft clouds. Her name was Claire Reynolds, the CEO everyone feared, admired, and never dared to mess with. She didn't believe in blind dates. She didn't believe in Christmas magic. She didn't believe in love, not anymore, but tonight, something was about to change. It started as a dare. A stupid, impulsive Christmas dare from her assistant, Lila, who claimed Claire needed a night off from boardrooms and balance sheets. One blind date, Lila had said. "It's Christmas Eve. What's the worst that can happen?" Claire had rolled her eyes then. But now, as she stared up at the softly glowing restaurant sign, she wasn't so sure. Because the worst thing wasn't the possibility that it would go badly. The worst thing was that she might actually feel something again. She almost turned around. Almost. But something in her chest, a flicker of loneliness she had buried under years of work, pushed her forward. Inside, the restaurant glowed with warmth and laughter. Families toasted to love, couples leaned close over candlelight, and the scent of cinnamon and roasted chestnuts hung in the air. She checked her phone. The man's name was Ethan, no last name, no photo. Just a time and place. "He'll recognize you," Lila had said with a mischievous grin. Claire doubted that. Most people didn't approach her unless it was for business. She was the kind of woman people looked at but didn't dare talk to a minute's past. She ordered tea, pretending she wasn't checking the door every few seconds. Finally, it opened again, and in walked a man dusted with snow, his dark hair damp, his coat half-buttoned. He looked around, scanning the room, and when his eyes met hers, something in the air shifted. He smiled, not a nervous, polite smile, but one that reached his eyes. "Claire?" he asked, walking up to her. She blinked. "Ethan?" He nodded, extending his hand. "Sorry I'm late. I almost didn't come. I thought blind dates were a joke." Her lips parted in disbelief, then softened into the smallest smile. "You and me both." They talked for hours about everything and nothing. She found herself laughing, actually laughing, at his dry humor. He wasn't like anyone she knew. He didn't try to impress her with titles or numbers. He spoke about little things, his favorite Christmas memory, the sound of snow falling, the warmth of a small kitchen filled with baking cookies. And for the first time in years, Claire didn't feel like a CEO. She just felt like a woman sitting across from someone who saw her, not the company she ran, not the power she held, but her. When they left the restaurant, snow had started falling harder. Ethan offered her his scarf. She refused, but he draped it around her anyway. "You can give it back next time," he said lightly. She raised a brow. "You think there'll be a next time?" He smiled. "I hope so." They stood there, the city glittering around them, the night so still it felt like time had paused. And then, he leaned in, not to kiss her, but to whisper, "Merry Christmas, Claire." She didn't realize until he walked away that her heart was racing, her pulse loud in her ears. She hadn't felt like this since before everything fell apart. Before her fiancé left. Before she buried herself in work to avoid feeling. She held his scarf to her chest, the faint scent of pine and cold air still clinging to it. For the first time in years, Christmas didn't feel like a reminder of what she'd lost. It felt like maybe, just maybe, something was beginning. A week later, the scarf was still draped over her chair. She told herself she'd return it, but every time she picked it up, she hesitated. It felt like holding onto a piece of that night, of the version of herself she thought she'd forgotten. Then came the snowstorm. The one that shut down half the city. She was working late, as usual, when the lights flickered and the power went out. Her office fell into silence, broken only by the wind outside. She grabbed her coat, frustrated, ready to brave the storm, when her phone buzzed. A text. "Unknown number. If you're still at the office, don't. Roads are a mess. Where do you live? I'll come get you." Her heart jumped. Ethan. She should have told him no. He wasn't part of her world, her schedule, her rules. But instead, her fingers typed before her mind caught up. The Ridge Apartments. Building 4. 15 minutes later, headlights cut through the snow outside her office. He stepped out, covered in flakes again, shivering but smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world to come rescue a CEO in a blizzard. "You're insane," she said as he helped her into the car. "Probably," he replied, glancing at her with a grin. "But you didn't seem like the type who'd wait for a cab." They drove through the white silence, the world outside fading into a blur of snow and light. When they reached her apartment building, the roads were nearly impassable. He parked a few blocks away. "We'll have to walk from here," he said. They trudged through the snow, laughing breathlessly when they nearly slipped, sharing a kind of easy, ridiculous joy that didn't need explaining. By the time they reached her door, their hair and coats were drenched. She fumbled with her keys, shivering. "Come in," she said finally. "You'll freeze out there." Inside, the small fire she'd left burning still glowed faintly. He looked around, simple, warm, not the sleek CEO space he probably expected. "I didn't think you'd actually let me in," he said softly. "Neither did I." They stood in front of the fire, their eyes meeting, and something unspoken passed between them, a question, an answer, and 1,000 emotions in between. She realized how long it had been since someone had looked at her like that. Like she was real, and maybe it was the storm, or the warmth, or the sheer madness of it all, but she reached up, brushing a strand of his wet hair from his forehead. He caught her hand gently. "Eyes searching hers." "Claire," he whispered, "I wasn't looking for this." "Neither was I," she replied. The silence that followed was filled with every word they didn't say, the pain of past heartbreaks, the fear of what tomorrow might bring, and the fragile hope that maybe, this time, it could be different. The wind howled outside again, but inside, it felt like the world had gone still. He stayed until the storm passed. They didn't talk much, just sat by the fire, wrapped in a blanket, watching snowflakes drift past the window. When dawn broke, he made her coffee and left quietly, promising to see her again, and he did. Christmas turned into winter, winter into spring. The city thawed, and so did she. They faced their share of challenges, the glare of public attention when people discovered the CEO's mystery man, her fear of losing control, his uncertainty about fitting into her world. But through it all, he never stopped showing up. Not with grand gestures, but with small ones, bringing her coffee when she was buried in work, leaving notes in her planner, reminding her that love wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. By the next Christmas, the snow fell again, softly, quietly, as if blessing what had been broken and remade. This time, when someone dared her to do something crazy for Christmas, she smiled and said, "I already did." Because sometimes, love doesn't arrive when you're ready for it. It arrives when you've stopped believing it ever would, and dares you to open the door, even in the middle of a storm.